Today, I sit down with Giovanni Piacentini. Gio is a very accomplished orchestra composer. He's a chamber ensemble composer and a television composer. He's also a teaching fellow at UCLA's Herb Alpert School of Music and exists in this really amazing intersection of the economy, education, and the arts, and brings a lot to the dialogue around what the music industry is going to look like after, what the future of teaching might be, and how we're kind of reevaluating economics right now. So enjoy this interview. We are with Giovanni, and Giovanni is going to say his last name because if I do, it'll sound like something that doesn't belong.
Some other weird illness.
Yeah.
Giovanni Piacentini. I think it has a good ring to it. It's been really hard having that name. I think we spoke about this last time. Growing up, I was born and raised in Mexico City, and then I've lived in the States for the better half of my life. And having a name like Giovanni Piacentini in those two countries, it's an icebreaker because you immediately have something to talk about. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What was your name? And why do you have such it's the most Italian sounding name in the universe. And I was born and raised in Mexico City. So that right there, actually, I'm realizing that's probably why I have so many friends. Cause that's like, it's a great conversation starter. Talk about engaging strangers. What better way, huh?
No one needs to know about my habit of engaging strangers. That's for sure.
So off the record.
Yeah, off the record. Edit that out. So for anyone who doesn't know, Gio is an amazing composer and musician and just artist at large. And I'll let you speak to that so I don't have to mangle it. But you're also a teaching fellow at the Herb Alpert School of Music at UCLA. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so the first part of what you said is pretty much what has kept me obsessed since I was like 9 years old. I've been held captive by music, and I've been obsessed with it. And I started playing the guitar at an early age, and I got obsessed with that, and slowly but surely started growing into more of a serious passion. And that's when my parents decided that it was time for me to get lessons, and one thing led to another, and lo and behold, I became a musician or a composer, whatever that means, But for better or worse, it's not really something that I chose. It's something that people sometimes find weird when I say that. But I read somewhere from someone that suffers from the same obsession as I do, that it's something that chooses you, not the other way around. So it chose me, and here I am, 30 something years later, writing music for many different instruments and soloists and orchestras, and also writing in a variety of genres, and just trying to express my message in as many ways as I can. And then the other side of what you said is I'm a teaching fellow, I think is the official title, at UCLA, at the Herb Alpert School of Music, and that's been amazing. I've been there for 3.5 years. I'm doing a PhD in composition, and as part of the program, we get to teach a little bit. You get assigned different lectures and seminars and discussion groups, and so it's been a real thrill. It's not something that I necessarily wanted to do or thought I would end up doing, teaching, I mean, but it's been incredible. It's been amazing, and now I consider it like a real option for the future, because it's for several reasons, but I'm really loving it. I'm loving and now obviously with this new world order, everything's changed, and I'm sure we'll get into that as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I definitely want to be talking about is, you'd mentioned that music kind of found you, and that you were chosen more than you have chosen music. I think that's interesting because I feel like a lot of artistic fields, that's how it happens. And I feel like it's almost like that's how it has to happen to produce, art that not only is satisfying to you, but that the world accepts as well. Because those two things aren't always in flux. Sometimes that's in conflict, and sometimes that's fine, right? Like you might find value to something that someone doesn't, and vice versa. But what is the value of an artist in today's world? And today meaning today at large, and today meaning post and current pandemic.
I think that the value of an artist in general, and maybe I'll speak a little bit more specifically about um, the aspect of art that is more important under these circumstances. But I think in general, uh, the role of an artist, at least in my opinion of what I've learned, is that they or we or uh, are people who um, create something, have a message, and then find a way to share it with people so that they can connect with each other. They're sort of like magnets that unify people, because what art really does is it awakens something inside of everybody that experiences it, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
That's at least good art, or whatever you want to call it, is supposed to engage you in some way and awaken that part of you that is also an artist. Because I also strongly believe that everybody has this, this word artist has had so many connotations through the years. And some people say, you're born with it or you're talented. That really means very little to me. I think that we all have an artistic side, or we can all create. We are all creators. We have this creating energy, all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that the job of someone who devotes their life to creating art is precisely to spark that in other people and make them realize, oh, wait, I have that in me too. It's part of me. It's not that alien to me. And also, there's a side of art that, makes you question. There's a side of art that's surprising, that is sort of like the antidote for boredom and monotony. It's a great palate cleanser when you look at an artwork and it moves you in a way. Move emotion, right? Motion. That's a great word, because that's what art should do. I think it should move you in a way. And in many cases, that movement is not pleasant and painful. And that's also good, because things are shifting. It's like that constant flux that is happening inside of us. And I think art makes us more aware of that. And I think that inevitably enriches our lives. How do you like that?
Yeah, I like that a lot. No, I agree. That also kind of triggered a thought about, speaking about the pandemic, and how people are needing those kinds of outlets in entertainment and music as almost a unifier and a healer. We're seeing and experiencing music in a different way, and I'd love to hear your take on, um, I think it's different because the type of music that you create, I think, is supposed to be experienced in real time, in person, in a amphitheater, right, with the right acoustics. Now that we're all at home and we're experiencing this through the computer, part of what you talked about with the process is more exposed. Like when you see John Legend get on his piano or whatever, you know what I mean? Like you're seeing these artists and everyday artists and gig artists you're seeing the whole process and all the flaws that come with that and the rawness of it. Is that changing the face of the music industry at all?
Yes. This is not entirely new especially to music making. I mean, this had been going on for a while. And as we spoke earlier, I feel that this new circumstance has sort of like catapulted ourselves into a future that was inevitable anyway. So now we're living what we would have lived anyway, if we would have just kept on going on that direction. To your point, I think that I've stopped making value judgments on the different ways of appreciating art. So, in other words, it's great to go into an amphitheater and feel that energy and look at somebody on stage doing something that is going to move you and make you laugh and cry, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing like that, but there's also nothing like this either. It's not a thing of it being better or worse, even though there are some purists and some people that hate this new. I think there's a lot of also people that are not willing to accept this, and I don't think that's good. because there's a lot to say about something like what you said. You see your favorite artist, or you see someone like John Legend, or the other day Metallica did a remote jam. I think it was Black in one of their songs, and I saw it and I thought it was amazing. I thought it was great. It's something different, right? Of course I would have loved to go see them at the Hollywood Bowl, and I hope we do sometime soon. But there is something to this as well, and we are getting a lot of more music is getting around. I see this in my own music. We're preparing to do some live shows, live streaming, that is, with a few of my friends, people that I hadn't been in touch with in years. Are reaching out to me. We're building these bands, these remote bands together, and we're making these concerts, and people are super reactive. We're engaging with a lot of people. I have a really good violinist friend who played a piece of mine last Sunday, and I mean, it got hundreds of thousands of views, something that is pretty amazing. It's like a different stage, right? It's like our stage now has become these social network platforms.
Yeah, which is interesting. And I think a lot of people already live there anyways too. So I don't think it's foreign in that sense. I think it's more of, music in any way. I mean, we listen to it on our headphones and through our phones anyway. So it's not a total departure. I'm just curious to see kind of what comes out of this and what changes are made from it. Speaking of changes, like how do your students cope with this, and what are the changes there as a teaching fellow? Like, have you had to pivot at all, or what does that look like?
Well, I'll tell you what happened specifically in my class, which I think encompasses everything that you're saying. I teach two separate discussion groups that we are based on ear training, right? Musicianship. And so at the beginning, I was wondering, like, how the hell am I going to do this? There's two groups, each of roughly 15 students. Most of them are freshmen. And at the beginning, I was coming up with plans of how to do this with the Zoom, with everybody in the Zoom sort of like meeting together. We meet for 15 minutes with each group. And then I thought, this is going to be a disaster. Like, if it's hard to keep these guys engaged regularly, in an in-person class, it's going to be a disaster trying to do this through Zoom. So what I came up with is a plan where I meet with, I divide them into groups of 3, and I meet with them for 10 minutes with each group. And this way, it's much more of a personalized lesson, in the sense that I can hear everybody sing every class that we meet, which would not happen in a class where we were all together. And, things like that, I sort of tweaked it around. And to my surprise, I've been having amazing results. So it's very funny. I was speaking with my wife this morning about this, and I was like, I'm not sure if this quarter I'm seeing my students progress more this quarter than I did last quarter. Yeah. And I don't know why that is. I'm doing something right, that's for sure. And they're doing something right. And maybe I'm just really lucky, and I have students that are very easily, transferred very easily to this sort of new mode of teaching, because they were, like you say, consuming information remotely anyway. But there's definitely something about this that I want to continue to do, and which is something I wanted to tell you. This is very interesting. Like, when they open up UCLA again, and if I'm still employed there, hopefully, I can, for sure, I will implement some of the stuff that I've been learning how to do because of this new way of teaching in my in-person class as well. So, again, no value judgment. It's simply keeping an open mind and understanding that this is just a different medium and a different technology that you need to learn how to use.
No, I like that. And thank you. That's kind of what I was hoping to hear to some extent of, I don't want people to look at this as just a period of time that we need to scrap and throw it away and then get back to whatever it was. Like, I like that people are finding the value in it and seeing how to improve systems that might have been outdated or not as in touch. And I think that's a great example, like shrinking the class size, basically making that more intimate, letting people kind of thrive that way is smart.
It's also more time efficient. It gives me more time to work on the material that I'm going to give them, because another big question mark when we got together with the faculty was the workload, right? You need to see how much time you're going to spend on this because you're sort of paid by the hour. And so this has actually increased my workflow a lot. So yeah, it's I mean, and you know, the things that like what you're doing is incredible, and what a great opportunity to launch this platform. You know, I guess I'm very optimistic today, but this is a great time to launch a platform like this where people are going to be more engaged than ever, partly because they have to, because there's no other choice, but partly also seeing the good side, right? The good side of technology. Technology is in the end it's a tool, right?
Yeah.
It's a very, very powerful tool, and it just so happens that it's so powerful that used in a bad way it can also kill you or destroy your life. But
Yeah.
I think that if you approach it with the right mindset and the right purpose and intention to use this tool, like with CommonAlly, which is an unbelievable tool and a very, I mean, obviously a very deep topic of discussion, but I think there's a lot to it, man.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
I agree. And that's been a common thread in all these interviews too, is it is a tool. It is the humans that are using it that will determine whether it's going to be used for good or bad.
Right.
But it is certainly a tool that can enhance our lives. And we are seeing that. And that was, you know, kind of why we launched this series too, is, you know, we just, we're a part of this new coalition to, it's Listen First in the weaving community. And it's all about, you know, using conversation and getting people to talk about life and issues that affect their lives. And, you know, there's a lot of things that we do at CommonAlly to bring people together and to, you know, mend bridges and to stop seeing all the differences and trying to really see the common ground that we have, which is a lot more than we think. And it starts with dialogue, right? So I think if you're able to do that, whether that's through a device or through a music lesson or through a concert, you're communicating with people. And I think that lets people put their guard down, forget about the differences, and actually connect. So
100%.
we'll
And
certainly see where it goes, but I think we're in the right path.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And this is a great this sort of like time out that evolution has given us.
The great pause.
The
I
great
think they're
pause.
calling it. Yeah.
The great pause is a great pause to reflect, right? Like you said so well. It's given us sort of like a chance to reevaluate everything.
Yeah.
And all the good things that are coming out of it too, like this conversation. This is a perfect example of something that maybe would have happened otherwise, but maybe not. And the reason that we're having this conversation is also because we're interested in coming together. It's like a great coming together, and the way we're coming together might, you know, not be ideal, but it is what it is. And if you accept it, and you understand that it's a tool for communication, then I think it's a fantastic tool.
Yeah, it's the amplification too. Like you
Right.
said, like you had, you know, your violinist that you know that played your song like hundreds of thousands of views, right? Like this conversation, you and I probably would have had this conversation, right? Because we take deep dives on everything, but
Over some good mezcal.
yes, of course, it's a requirement. But that conversation maybe wouldn't have gone past that, right? And that influence or that inspiration is hard to trigger others unless you have a platform, unless you create that platform and that conversation and open that conversation up to others.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. So yeah, I think we're on the same page there for sure. I feel like a lot of this, I think you're unique in the sense that, and please tell me if I'm wrong, because this is an outside perspective, but I feel like in the world of music and music as an industry, you're kind of always caught in this trap of, to be a true artist and really focus on the art of what you do, you kind of have to not be with a label or not, you know, rely on it for your source of income. And when you do, you're kind of beholden to someone else, and it creates this like hard like dichotomy, right? And this contrast of how to be an artist and be truly free, but also make a living, right? And I feel like you're kind of in this pocket, this really good pocket. So can you talk to us about how that is?
Yeah. Well, you're wrong about the unique part. I don't think I'm very unique, but I am in a sort of a unique situation though, and it almost happened like serendipitously. I sort of fell into it by luck, and then I realized that I was in it, and then I started to make the best of it, and it's become a really good place. And basically, the gist of it is that I don't make my money from my art, from music. I do make money from music, but that's not my main source of income. This is something that I found out quite a few years ago, maybe like 10 or 15 years ago, when I started to realize that there was a real gap between, sort of like the capitalist way of thinking and artistic production. I never found a link between what an artist creates and how to turn that into a product. There was something about that that never clicked for me.
Yeah.
I still, it's not that I don't get it. I kind of understand it better now, but I don't trust it. I don't trust it that much. And I never have. And this might be a shortcoming of mine. And it might be why why art is not my main source of income. But I do have friends and I have acquaintances that, whose main source of income is art, and they do quite well. So I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that there's a certain shift that has to happen in your thinking, where you have to understand this marriage between artistic creation and creating a product, because that's ultimately what you're going to sell, like what a label does. That's it. Well, I mean, I'm sort of explaining the job of industries like music record labels, even if they're like sort of slowly disappearing. But so in my personal sort of circumstance, I found myself following the model of and by the way, I'm by no means the first person that does this. There was a very, very famous American composer by the name of Charles Ives, who you may know is an incredible composer. And his father was sort of like a pioneer in the insurance industry in America, like at the turn of the century. And then he learned everything from his father, and he became an incredible himself. He revolutionized the way insurance companies worked, and obviously he made a fortune. But he just happened to be like one of the most incredible composers of serious or orchestral music in the world, and certainly in the United States. And he always sort of spoke to that same sort of thing. He never wanted to be tied to that idea of having a different motive for creation, and having because it's a sort of pressure. I mean, this. I'm talking to someone that is also an artist and has a lot of creative ideas that you, out of necessity, sometimes need to sort of find a link, right? A link to the market. You start speaking in economic terms, and that's when I sort of, there's like a short switch. Now, I love economics, and I think they're super interesting. I just don't. I think of economics as an art form as well. So it's hard for me to, you know what I mean? It's hard for me to make that sort of distinction. So that's the way that I've done it. Now, having said that, though, I'm of course not opposed to making money from music. I have made money from music, and of course, if somebody comes knocking on my door and Netflix wants my music for the next big series, I'm not going to shut the door in its face at all. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to go with it. But it's different. It's different. It's a different way of thinking. It's a different approach. It's a different perspective. And it's very interesting. I hope I can continue to learn more about that. But that's
is it the balance that, like, the balance of health and wealth, and just the value of money in general? Like, is there, like, do you feel like you're in that rhythm? Have you found that balance that you're kind of alluding to there?
Yeah, well, the balance has, through the years in my life, has shifted towards reevaluating what money really means and what it does, and what wealth really is. Like you say, wealth and health. I've come to need less stuff, and I think that from more of a stoic point of view, that has really changed the way I see life. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier who does very well. He lives in Miami and he has this, this big house and does very well for himself. And he was, ever since this isolation started, he's looking at his garage and he has all these, fancy cars, and he's like, why? There's no need for that. Like, what? They're completely useless. They're like a piece of junk sitting in my garage. What could I have done with all that money? And so definitely there's a reevaluating that has happened with me, and it's really the bottom line of it all is, what do you ultimately need to be happy? Speaking of which, something we touched on last time we chatted was it $70,000 a year that studies have found that that's what people need to be sort of like happy or comfortable or whatever.
Yeah, and if you go over it, it's kind of like false happiness kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you go over it, well, yeah, and I mean, when you think about it, it's really sobering, because especially in places like we live, like in LA, $70,000 a year isn't a whole lot of money to get you by, especially if you have a family.
I may be misquoting this, but I believe the poverty line in Santa Monica is like 200,000. Like,
there you go.
Literally.
There you go. And that's the way we live. And we have you have your daughter, I have my daughters, and we take them to these parties where, they make it snow and they bring Elsa in an ice horse in the middle of June. And it's like, what kind of expectations are we creating for these?
I know, man.
For these girls, It's so
as soon as we're allowed to again, I'm just gonna take her in the woods and say, fend for yourself for 2 days, and I'll meet you back here. Use the compass, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah. But it's also a very touchy subject, politically speaking. Like, you must know much better than I do. But as soon as you start talking like that, you're a commie, or you're like, what is that talk? It's like it's like offensive, because I think there's a lot of fear underneath that. There's a fear that you're going to take that away, because a lot of people end up finding the value they find in their lives is attributed to the things they own or owe, as I like to say.
You want to give your kids more than you had, and I think that's fine. And in certain circumstances, whenever you can, like, that's great. But they have to have that sense of self-sufficiency and value and understanding and respect, and just be grateful for the things that don't come with price tags. I think and it's harder, especially now, because there's not much that's analog or manual. There's not a lot of getting your hands dirty, right? So I think you have to kind of almost artificially create that to bring back some sort of normalcy, so they can kind of go in and out of those worlds. And I think now, especially, you have a 5-year-old, as do I, like, at that age, technology doesn't really have to be a part of their lives. They should be, learning how to do a lot of things on their own, and they should be using imagination. And now they have no choice. They're face to face with technology at all times. So I think it's our responsibility to kind of still try to create some balance there. But
100%. Yeah, but I'm also been very surprised, going back to my kids at UCLA. We have this thing of thinking, us of an older generation, 41 years old. We have this sort of like, it's a stereotype, I think. These young kids, they live on their phones, and they never pay attention. Their attention span is 0, and they're never going to learn anything.
I've found that to be grossly not correct.
Completely incorrect. They have a much better understanding of how to use technology than we think they do.
Well, to your point about it being a tool, I think they use it like that. They're so efficient, so savvy. It's like they use it to get the education they need, to learn the stuff they have to, and then it's gone. Whereas we're more dependent on it in our generation. Like, I think it's more of a crutch for us than it is for them. But they get all the flack,
Exactly. Yeah. So it's I don't know what this is going to lead, but there's definitely going to be a lot of things that I'm going to take with me from this time. Good things, and make the best of it. I think that this reevaluation is going to massively change the way we think about a lot of things, and especially our relationships, right, in life. There's that famous study from Harvard University that's been going on for like 75 years, where they research what truly makes us happy and what makes us healthy and live longer. And the bottom line is it's good having good relationships with your family, with your close friends. That's essentially, biologically what actually matters in life. So yeah, it's just a time to think about all those things and to find ways to enjoy it. And obviously this is speaking from a very, very, very privileged point of view. There's a lot of people that they're having a much rougher time, and I'm not insensitive to that. But it's also important to understand that there's also different points of view about what this is going to bring and what this means.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up too, because everyone is not experiencing this the same. I think we've talked about that quite a bit with everybody we talk to. So I don't think anyone's naive to that by any means. But also to your point of it comes down to building relationships and fostering relationships. I think there's always a way you can do that regardless. And it might be harder. It might be, you might have more obstacles in the way, but I think that is a no cost way of really handling a lot of this. When you talk about, going to, cause it's funny, cause like you're at the crossroads of art, education, and the economy, really. I mean, and probably others obviously, but like, I feel like you're at that intersection in your day to day. Do you feel one of those more than others? And specifically to education, what's UCLA doing? Like, are there new policies that are going to be in place? Are they reevaluating as an institution, or is everybody kind of doing what you're doing, is kind of personally reevaluating?
I think it's both. I think they're reevaluating as an institution, and they're letting us sort of do our thing. I personally, I think the UC system in general has done a stellar job of sort of like reorganizing everything. I was speaking to a friend of mine that teaches at a university that I will not name on the East Coast, and it's basically a disaster. I mean, kids are left without classes, and the few assignments that they have, they're like, nobody's really grading them. It's pretty much. And by the way, the fees are still they're still happening. They're still paying for this. So I think that I think the UC system has done a great job. They're also under this umbrella of California being one of the most liberal states, and how we are really concerned for the health of the people much more than we are for the economy, and people realize that, and UC is part of that. But they for better or worse, they've kept their sort of like their stance. They haven't shifted. And so as it stands now, is UCLA is closed. It's closed through the summer. And I think that in the fall, this is still to be seen. And I can just speak for the music school, but there's going to be some in-person meetings, but there's also going to continue to be some remote learning as well. So I'm talking about the fall. So yeah, that's where it stands right now. As far as the crossroads for me, I mean, economically, of course, it's the first impact that I've seen, obviously, because my wife and I also have a business. It's called Big and Tiny. It's like an indoor childcare business with a co-working area. Nice. And and I mean, that's been impacted totally. It's changed completely. And we've been lucky that we moved early, and we were able to get some help, and we have nice landlords, et cetera, but again, very privileged position. But I see that every day. My business partner in Houston, where we have a real estate business going, has been impacted tremendously. His main company has now opened another company under that umbrella that is now dedicated basically to medical supplies, because that's the only way to stay afloat and keep the employers employed also. Keep paying these people that in the end were probably the most affected, the people that are relying month to month on that paycheck. So and then on the third tier, first is the economy, second is education, the way that I teach class, and then the third is creating art, which hasn't really changed that much. I've been isolating, practicing social distancing since I was 15 years old, locking myself up in a room, playing the guitar as loud as I can. And I still do that. I just have a different room, a louder guitar, but I still do that. And So that hasn't changed anything. In fact, I'm busier than ever. I'm writing 2 albums. I'm producing another one. I'm just doing all sorts of things, and which I'm extremely thankful for. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in these times, in times of crisis, of worldwide crisis, is where a lot of artists sort of gain momentum. Something happens inside where you can't not create, and you just have to keep going. And I definitely feel that.
Yeah.
There's that vibe.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you today was that I think it's a good example for everyone else in their own situation, regardless of their job, their industry. I think looking to the way artists develop out of this and thrive and flourish, I think in a lot of ways is a good example for other people to kind of follow. Um, and Yeah, man, what's next for you? And I'd love to see where people can find you too, so
Yeah.
people can hear what I know.
Thank you, man. What's next? Well, day at a time. I want to finish. I want to sort of like put an end to a few of these projects that I have going on. I have a couple of records coming out soon. I'm also doing a very different sort of project to the ones that I'm used to doing, both personally, and I'm also producing the singer, doing sort of like a more of a pop album type thing. I'm cooking up a big work for a guitar and string quartet that hopefully we have a chance to perform and to record and everything. So there's a lot of things that I want to see come to fruition and hopefully end by this summer. But it just keeps going. The wheel keeps spinning. I'm still teaching at UCLA. I'd probably still be teaching through the summer and hopefully through the fall as well, even though my program is coming to an end. So I still have to see about that. And then just, hanging out with my girls as much as I can. It's another thing that we didn't touch upon, but it's having spent so much time with them, it's really unbelievable. It's amazing. I've loved it. It's exhausting.
Yeah,
yeah.
You definitely see the pros and cons. You really start, throwing more gratitude than you already had to educators and to care workers and family members who help us out when we need to do these things. Now that we're doing both things, I think there's more gratitude to go around for sure. But I will mirror what you're saying, that I think I've been more absent than I wanted to be lately to get CommonAlly where it needs to be, and starting to see that distance and not be very happy with it. So now to be back in that family unit more often is something I certainly cherish out of this. So I feel lucky in that regard.
Absolutely. Likewise, my friend. Yeah, the girls are happy. I do need that glass of wine at the end of the day, though.
Oh, yeah, that glass of wine has turned into a bottle of mezcal, but yes. Cool. Well, I think we're past our time here, so let's. Where can people find your music?
So basically, the 2 platforms that I use the most are Instagram and Spotify. So on Instagram, I'm at Giovanni Piacentini, and Spotify is just Giovanni Piacentini, my name. And you can Google me and all that good stuff. I also have a website, giovannipiacentini.com. If you can spell it, you can make it there.
We'll put it up here. We'll make it easy for
Thank
everyone.
you.
Yeah.
But yeah, make sure you check it out. I have a bunch of really cool, interesting things. I'm so blessed to be working with just such amazing artists that I have to pinch myself every day. I can't believe that these guys are even like picking up my phone calls or my Zoom calls or whatever. But I feel so blessed, and there's a lot of good stuff coming out, and I'm learning a lot. And I would love for all of you and everybody to be part of it. So, and I want to thank you, man, because this has been like, I want to thank you on a personal level for having me on this sort of like discussion, but also on a deeper level for doing everything that you're doing, because I see how incredibly hard you work, and it's inspiring, man. It's inspiring, and it's not easy. As a father, I know it's not easy, and so kudos to you, man. This is going great, and I can't wait to find out what happens with CommonAlly. I'm actually genuinely very, very excited, because I think it has a really bright future.
Thank you, dude. That means a lot. Yeah, we've hinged it all. This is it, for the long run, because it's more than us. It's more than a job. This was always started as a way to give, my daughter a better future, and to really let her see that there's a lot of different people with different perspectives, and that, you know, if we do want to live in a democracy, however you feel about that, we have to come together, and I think we can do that. So I'm really glad that you've been a part of this, and, you know, can't thank you enough either, man. I'm glad people get to hear from the master, and I don't know, maybe there's a piece of music you can send our way, and we'll put that up there as a bonus piece. I think
absolutely.
Cool.
I'll give you a few different ones to choose from.
Okay, that'd be good, dude.
Cool,
awesome,
man. Brother. Well, thanks so much, man. Dude. Yeah, let's talk again soon. Yeah,
for sure, man. I could do this each week, each night if we want.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, brother. Say hi to the fam.
Hey, hi to the fam to you too.
All right.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good night.